Hello everyone, this is Naresh IAS Academy digital platform for the IAS mains exam. Now I am working on general studies question paper 1 and I have completed the entire GS paper 2 through the 20 videos and these I have uploaded on the YouTube channel, so you may take help from there, and the remaining part in detailing I have uploaded on my website Naresh IAS Academy. And this is my next effort to cover the GS paper 1 again through the 20 videos, and I am trying to explain how to grasp the entire syllabus in short and depth. And you may contact for offline classes. We cover each general studies paper in 20 days. And according to syllabus, this is the third topic, important events from the mid of 18th century. This is the topic. The first we have to trace the important events since the mid of 18th century. And what do you mean by the mid of 18th century? The history after the 1750 and onwards. And how can we draw the important events from that time? The first event, we can evaluate the era as a fragmented polity, and we have to prove this. Do you agree or not? Fragmented polity or the disintegrated polity. Second, foreign invasion. Third is rise of East India Company as political power. Rise of British East India Company as the political power. And next is economic impact over the country. Okay, these are the important events we can trace from the mid of 18th century. And through the Indian map, we will take some help to draw some incidents. First, we have to prove the era was fragmented polity or the time of disintegrated polity or not. Definitely we can say this was the time of disintegration, because up to the 1750 or 1760 the imperial Mughals and their empire was declined for the large extent. There was a time when Mughal empire was symbol of Indian identity, but after the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, the Mughal empire was continued declined. So when there was no one political power throughout the country, definitely so many events were waiting in standing before the country. So this was the decline of Mughal empire, and now the geographical boundary of Mughal empire was very shrink, and they have only some geographical areas where they have the direct rule. Most of Mughal territories became the independent states, and now they stood before the empire. Second, the rise of regional power that time. This was the Bengal province. The Bengal province was the largest province that time, including presently Bengal, the West Bengal, Bangladesh, Bihar, Odisha, Jharkhand and some other part of northeastern states. And after the 1720, Murshid Quli Khan declared Bengal as independent province and Murshidabad is the capital. However, in the earlier time it was the important province or Suba of the Mughal Empire and provides the largest revenue source for the Mughals. And same this was the Awadh states. Awadh states now called the central province and it also became independent after the Mughals and they left the Mughal suzerainty, and this was the Sadat Ali Khan and who declared himself as independent ruler and who made the Faizabad his capital. And this was the Karnataka, the state of Karnataka in South India. Sadatullah Khan was the founder and who made Arcot as his capital, and this was also a part of Mughals. And this was the Hyderabad state where the Nizam declared himself as declared and who also come out from the dominance of Mughals after the 1720. And this was the Mysore states. Mysore state became the independent states during the 1761 when Hyder Ali acquired the power from Vodiyar dynasty and Hyder Ali declared himself as Sultan of Mysore and ruled for the 1782. Then Tipu Sultan, his son and legal heir, or who continue as a Sultan from Mysore till his death 1799. And this was the position of Marathas, and Maratha now became a sole power in India and were trying to defeat all the regional powers and trying to replace the Mughal Empire, and it was expected to be a next political power of throughout the country because during the 1749 Maratha Chhatrapati vested all his political power into hand of the Peshwa. So now the position of Peshwa was immediately increased, and during the 1780 the Punjab province including Kashmir, Lahore, it was brought under the influence of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and where Maharaja Ranjit Singh made his own territory and declared himself as the independent ruler. So then you can prove this definitely the mid of 18th century was a disintegrated polity or the fragmented polity. There was no one ruler, we can say the Chakravartin ruler or the Vikramaditya ruler. So there were so many political power that time. Second aspect is the foreign invasion. So definitely it is adjacent factors. If there is a political disintegration, there is no one monarch in a geographical area, definitely it is a favorable time or environment for the foreign powers. And at that time, from the mid of 18th century, Ahmad Shah Abdali, the ruler of Persian Empire, including territory of Persia and Afghanistan, now who targeted the India. Before the Ahmad Shah Abdali, this was the Nadir Shah who established the Durrani Empire, and Nadir Shah invaded over India in 1739. And after the Nadir Shah, when Ahmad Shah Abdali became his legal heir, so now Ahmad Shah Abdali again targeted the India, and there were political and economic factors. Why the Ahmad Shah Abdali committed invade over India? So there were political and the economic factors, and the invasion of Ahmad Shah Abdali was challenged by the Maratha forces. And as we have said, when the Maratha Peshwa acquired power of Maratha Chhatrapati II, so now they declared themselves as the sole power of India and they challenged the Ahmad Shah Abdali, and it was resulted into the Battle of Panipat III. The Battle of Panipat III took place in 1761, and finally Ahmad Shah Abdali got victory. Maratha were defeated. There were two long-lasting impact of the Maratha defeat or the Battle of Panipat III. First, the battle clearly explain that who will be the next political power of India. Maratha was absolutely not. Or second, this was the time for rising of East India Company. So definitely after the defeat of Maratha, the time arose with the East India Company, and now East India Company started to open the door of Indian victory through the Bengal province. And one more aspect, why the important battles were fought in the battles of Panipat. Panipat first 1526, Panipat second 1556, this was the Panipat third, the 1761. So then we can trace some evidences. Panipat was a transitional place, or we can say it was located at a turning point, because next to Panipat, this was the throne of Delhi. Any political power, foreign power, determined to acquire the Delhi as the symbol of political power of India, so then they first established themselves as the Panipat, because after the Panipat, this was too easy to acquire the Delhi. That's why they targeted the Panipat. Second, Panipat have the fertile area, the resources, agriculture, and the availability of food grains, fresh water supply, and the favorable climate. And this was the important second economic factor for the foreign invasion. That's why the most of empire-shaking battles were fought in the Panipat. And third, we can say Panipat was very close to the northwest boundary, and we can see from the ancient time most of invasion were from the northwest boundary, and Panipat was very close, and the Emperor of Delhi also tried to stand their position in the Panipat too. So when the foreign forces stood themselves in the field of Panipat, so definitely due to the very closeness to northwest boundary, it was easy access for the foreign powers, and it was too easy to acquire the Delhi from the Panipat, and these factors were not available with any places. That's why the most important battles were fought in the Panipat. Okay. The third point, you can say the rise of East India Company. East India Company belongs to the Britain, and as we know, after its establishment 1600, how the East India Company started its trade commerce in India. They established so many trading posts in India. Basically, it was a commercial company, the economic company, but through the commerce or economic activities, now company acquired too much economic power. They made their sound economic source, and to maintain this economic benefit, now they tried to be a political power. So then after the economic power, this was the philosophical approach of the East India Company, how to be a political power of India if we want to maintain these economic benefits for a long. So that's why East India Company now tried to be a political power, and from which territory it should be started, and this was the Bengal province, where the East India Company searched the key to open the door of its victory, and this key was searched by the duplex in South India, but the duplex was failed. So how the East India Company got success in Indian circumstances? However, they were too much strong political power that time. There were multiple factors, but here we can discuss 2 or 3 factors. One is the political factors. East India Company clearly determined to be a political power, because this philosophy was inspired by the economic factors. Economic factor means what? The economic gains company was attracting or getting from the Indian sides. The company now was expected to maintain these economic benefits for a long duration, and it may be either to maintain healthy relation with the Indian regional power, but it is not possible, and then there were so many difficulties to maintaining the relationship. And second way was company should itself be a political power. So definitely company now determined to be a politically the expansionist power. So this was the imperialist approach of the company. And same we can say from the side of Indian monarch. The Indian regional powers were disintegrated, they were not united, and they had the rival relationship to each other. So when the company defeated the Bengal province, the no political power of India support the Nawab of the Bengal. And the second factor was the economic. Through the economic trade and commerce, East India Company acquired too much economic benefits, and through the sound economic resources, company got permission for establishing trading post and to build their fort and fortification of the trading postes, and within the fortification they started to maintain the gunpowder, cannons, maintaining the large army, strong army. They started the training pattern for the army. So definitely economic and political approach of the East India Company now made its success over the Indian political power. And third was the diplomatic approach of the company. Company definitely was too much ahead in diplomatic approach than the Indian political power. And the diplomatic factors, how much extent it was relevant, definitely we can trace this in the Battle of Plassey. The Battle of Plassey took place in 1757, in which East India Company defeated the Nawab of Bengal, the Siraj-ud-Dowla. Before the battle, Nawab Siraj-ud-Dowla tried to control the East India Company by returning their economic privilege like the use of free pass, and it was resulted into the Black Hole tragedy, 20th June 1756, and finally East India Company bound the Nawab to surrender in the Treaty of Alinagar. However, now East India Company determined to punish the Nawab, and definitely this was the political daring of the East India Company. And how the East India Company made conspiracy and to get help from all the allies power, or all the officials were given the too much bribe for supporting the East India Company. So the Battle of Plassey was not a political battle or military battle, it was definitely a conspiracy, but conspiracy was maintained by the high level diplomacy. And the second battle, Battle of Buxar, took place in 1764, in which the company again defeated the Nawab of Bengal and his allied power, Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, or the Nawab of Awadh, the Shujā-ud-Dawla. So definitely there were some additional factors or more important factor with the East India Company. They were that time either absent or least important for the Indian political powers, and that's why East India Company became the political power along with the economic power. So this was not surprising, definitely it was a well planned, it was a good strategy of the East India Company. And also the mid of 18th century we can trace some new changes in the Indian scenario. Scholars, imperial or Indian historians now oversaw the rise of famine at large scale. However, the incident of famines in the earlier time also have been seen before the East India Company. But immediately just after the mid of 18th century, the entire Bengal province or some incident in the South India have seen as a great famine. And definitely I want to say how the famines affected by the mid of 18th century. There were the two important approaches. Before the East India Company's becoming a political power, famines was a reality, but it was a natural or climatic factors. But after becoming the political power, the famines became a artificial factors. Artificial factors means what? Now company manipulated all the circumstances. Most of revenue resources East India Company collected in their hands. You know, after the Battle of Plassey or Battle of Buxar, company through the Treaty of Allahabad initiated the diarchy rule in Bengal province. The diarchy rule provided the revenue resources to the East India Company and maintaining the law and order in the hand of Nawab of Bengal. So when the company acquired, forfeit all the revenue resources, then no single money was given to the Nawab of Bengal. So definitely it led to the severe famine in the Bengal province. And also the company rule or the after becoming the political power, the famine's frequency increased immediately. The frequency of famines was changed. Earlier before the East India Company, the famines took place after 10 or 15 years, sometimes the 20 years. But now there was no fixed time. It may be twice within a year or any time there may be a circumstances for the famines. So then definitely we can say the famines became more artificial than natural phenomena and the frequency of famines was increased. That's why it was remarked by the historians while they were writing the history books. And also some incident in the South India where the political power Marathas, Mysore, Karnataka, Hyderabad were indulged in a political worship and they did not take care of their peoples. They undermined the economic activities, agriculture sectors, and definitely this led to the crisis in the food grains or the economic activities, or again it was resulted into the famines. So this was definitely an important incident traced from the mid of the 18th century. So then I want to say you should start your preparation and how to cover this topic in this way. Definitely I can say then you can cover all the questions whichever asked by UPSC in previous years and we can prepare our mindset to tackle the questions which may be asked by UPSC in the next years. Okay, thank you.